This week, we return back to the Majjhima Nikāya, the middle-length discourses, to explore this sutta that oftentimes is not discussed, not talked about, and instead, people, if they do mention it as part of the teachings of Lord Buddha's, this Dhamma, and they have taken out certain interesting otherworldly elements to it and presented it as such to usually younger generations. And so it became part of the Buddhist culture. The themes of, or the theme of this sutta that we will be discussing. But it has many, many, many layers to it. It bridges the gap between what we understand to be real, specifically as far as we're concerned as living beings, human beings in this physical plane, which we call humanity, let's say, in this world, and the other aspect of life, specifically heavenly realms. And not just any heavenly realms, but the Brahma realms. Because oftentimes we think of heavenly realms as just one. In Buddhism, we have a multitude of realms. Some of them are below the heavenly realms, yes, the divine realms, such as ours, which we are at the cusp, the fifth layer, the fifth realm, if you will. And there's 4 lower realms, the woeful realms, the miserable realms. And then there are the Deva realms, or heavenly, divine realms, that go above the human realm by 16 or so. And then you get to the Brahma realm. So this sutta that we will be discussing today, by the way, it is the Brahmā Nimantaṇika Sutta, where we have the infamous Baka Brahmā. Infamous for some because of how he was thinking, and that becomes gives a gravitational pull for Lord Buddha to go, I have to go and teach this Brahma a lesson, because he's getting some ideas that he is an eternal being, and that is a temptation. That higher beings, higher as in devas and Brahma gods, etc., have the or encounter this temptation, to say the least, to think in terms of eternalism. Now, of course, you don't have to be living in another realm to subscribe to that notion that eternalism exists. Many people are living their human lives relying so much on the eternalistic views of theirs, wrong views. There's the opposite side. There's the nihilistic view, which says once we die, lights out, that's it, that's the end of it. So let's live the way we want to live, and, so there's no consequences, no causality to resultant factors. The fruits that are happening, they're not looked at fruits of anything as the outcome, the consequences of actions, intentional actions committed in the past. Instead, they're looked at randomly, which is a big part of modern Western, usually, ways of thinking as far as philosophy goes, currently dominating themes that we see, although for the last 100 years or so, if not more. But now things are, because of the resources that we have, we're looking and saying, okay, some of us at least, and saying, wait a minute, I don't have to subscribe to either one of these 2 extremes. Lord Buddha addressed these 2 extremes and all this, the whole entire spectrum of different ideas that fall in one area of, well, in the spectrum. between these two extremes, and he called it the 62 views or wrong views. There's only one right view, one that sees that there is suffering and then tries to ameliorate the situation by understanding it, of course. And then the antidote to that. Hence, we have a wisdom path within the Dhamma, which is called right view, Sammaditthi. So here we have a situation where there isn't that. It will make more sense if you haven't gone over the sutta, which is available at the PDF. It's on the website. But typically what's happening is there is the Brahma God, and as I said, there are different layers of heavenly realms, and one of the most famous ones is the Tavatimsa heaven, which is the 33 gods realm, or the realm of the 33. Tavatimsa, that's what it means. You have primarily 33 primary gods living in that realm, where Sakka or Indra is their head. Hence, he is called the king of the gods of all in his realm, and everyone else beneath him. There's gods that live on the human, or closest to the human realm, the earth gods, and close to the earth. Sometimes you read about them, such as in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, where Lord Buddha began teaching the Dhamma for the first time. They were the first ones to pick up what was happening. They're the ones who are the closest to the human realm. They are the closest. Sometimes some people say, well, they're like the fairies, or are the fairies that you see in different cultural or mythological, the heritage that we have in different folklore, this and that. So that's just, one interpretation. But there, people have tried to connect them closer and closer to things that are more tangible. Of course, you have in the different suttas and commentaries of some of these gods dwelling in trees, for example, tree-dwelling, gods, and it goes up and up, so they become more and more refined. But it doesn't stop there at Sakka's level, or king or of the gods, Indra's level. It goes far beyond. And this is where we are dealing with the going beyond the passion, sensuality. So when that happens, then we are getting closer to the Brahma realms. So there isn't the sensual interest. There's rupa, though. Form, it's called form. It has several realms, and their lifespan is quite much longer than, and you can sit down and do arithmetic to figure out how long of a lifetime we're talking about. There's many, many, many zeros involved. Someone I know, he once did the number of only one Mahakalpa, and it came out to be 7 miles long. And he used how much time he had in his hand, I don't know, but he definitely sat down with a 12-size font, and he did the numbers, and it came out to about 7 miles long, the zeros for one Mahakalpa. So anyhow, Brahma gods enjoy a very long lifespan. And a person can become deluded. You can almost forgive the person to think that they're eternal. But we're going to see here such a situation where Lord Buddha comes to fix the problem, in a sense, by introducing right view. But it's a long sutta, so I don't want to do too much of an introduction, or too long of an introduction, and just I'll stop as necessary. So this is the Majjhima Nikāya number 49, or middle length discourses number 49, the Brahmā Nimantaṇika Sutta. challenging and instructing the Brahma gods. Other translators used invitation by the gods. I didn't, you're not going to see any gods inviting Lord Buddha here. So I don't know where they got the idea of invitation. But so let's do our, own adventure here by digging in. I have personally heard this. Once, during the time when the Blessed One was staying at the monastery donated by Anathapindika in Savati's Jeta's Park, he addressed the bhikkhus by saying, "Bhikkhus?" "Yes, Bhante," those bhikkhus answered delightedly. And the Blessed One continued speaking. Once upon a time, bhikkhus, while I was staying at Ukkata by the majestic Sala tree, there at the Subhaga grove, a wrong view arose in the mind of the Brahma God, the king of evil view, the kind of evil view that is truly harmful and destructive. Now, the wrong view that Baka, the Brahma God, was having in his heart was this. This indeed is permanent. This state of mind is truly fixed, imperishable, and forever lasting. This is what is meant by being eternal. This is the entire absolute, where one is no longer liable to passing away, and thus is beyond impermanence itself. Here there's neither birth nor aging nor death. Things do not pass away, and there definitely is nothing higher, no further escape and safety beyond this. So that is, the belief that this Brahma God, Baka, has. And there are several, as you can deduce from what I've shared, what it says in the suttas, several Brahma gods. There's also Mahabrahma. So like the overlord sometimes is also referred to. So anyhow, let me go back in. Then bhikkhus, seeing that I knew what Baka the Brahma God was pondering and entertaining in his heart, just as easily as a strong and agile man would stretch out his flexed arm or draw in his outstretched arm, I disappeared from Ukkata and was no longer sitting by the majestic Sala tree within the Subhaga park, and immediately reappeared in that Brahma world, where Baka, the Brahma God, was at that moment. This is a term that we've seen so many times. Usually we see this with either Lord Buddha or one of his chief disciples, specifically Venerable Mahamoggallana, where the term is just like flexing an outstretched arm or extending a flexed arm, just like that. A strong, agile man would do, like that fast. So just like that, he disappeared from one realm or one place and reappeared in another. Now, bhikkhus, the moment Baka, the Brahma God, saw me approaching from the distance, he quickly greeted me by saying, "Welcome, good sir. You are most welcome indeed, good sir. At last, good sir, you did make this occasion to come and visit us here, where one finally finds permanence indeed. For this domain of mine is truly fixed, imperishable, and forever lasting. After all, this is what is meant by being eternal. This is the entire absolute, where one is no longer liable to passing away, and thus is beyond impermanence itself." So you basically, he's thinking this is like being on the other side or the farther shore that we see in the suttas. In his mind, he's thinking, this is it, you made it. I mean, whoever is born here has made it. There's no falling back from this ever again. This is where you find impermanence, permanence, I'm sorry. This is the only place where impermanence cannot reach. This is the absolute, therefore. This is the truth, etc., etc. And he continues, here there's neither birth nor aging nor death, and there definitely is nothing higher, no further escape and safety beyond this. This is safety, basically, he's saying. Now, bhikkhus, once Baka the Brahma God spoke these words, I replied to him by saying, well, well, It seems that Baka the Brahmā is steeped in ignorance indeed. It is truly sad that Baka the Brahmā has given himself to such deluded thinking and wrong view, for he has indeed drenched himself in willful ignoring, avidya, seeing that he calls what is truly impermanent permanent, even though there is nothing to speak of that is truly fixed, imperishable, or forever lasting. After all, in a place where one is absolutely liable to passing away and thus most certainly is within the grasp of impermanence itself, Baka the Brahmā believes that this is eternal, or the absolute. Furthermore, in a realm one is born into, where there is aging and most certainly death, Baka the Brahmā deludedly claims that here, somehow, there's neither birth, nor aging, nor death. But especially when there is most definitely an escape beyond all of this, Baka the Brahmā states with certainty that there is no escape and safety beyond this. I'm reminded of the European explorers who would look west off the edge of Portugal, let's say, and they would say, ah, this is the end, the great expanse. There's nothing beyond this point. And whoever would dare to go, it's just absolute 100% death. Until some people said, oh, wait a minute, let's go exploring. And some people went that way and they didn't die. They came back. So it's almost as, yeah, whimsical even to think that this is it. But you have this thing called memory and time. When you are a Brahmā God, you have almost nothing but time, because you're seeing other beings come and go, come and go, come and go, entire planets, entire galaxies come and go, come and go. So dynasties, etc., in different realms, different beings. Let's say if you were around when the dinosaurs were roaming the earth, and you were just watching them outside your window, and then they disappeared, and then you saw other organisms show up, different types of trees, even before the dinosaurs. And then they change, the texture, the topography of the earth changes in front of you, and you're seeing, oh, it's mountain, oh, this wasn't a mountain. It was flat, in fact. And then you see all the tectonic plates, this and that, smash against each other underground, and then they push up through subterranean. All that energy comes out, and all of a sudden you have the Himalayas. So if you have that ability or time, and you're seeing all this, chances are you think that time is infinite, or you're infinite. Your lifespan is infinite. You're never going to die. But it's just that your lifespan is longer compared, well, take an ant's life or a flea's life or a fruit fly, which lives for a very short time during the day. And you go and try to convince that fruit fly, hey, there's human beings here. And some of them live up to 100, 130 years. What? Years. They can't even survive half a day, a fruit fly. For them, it sounds incredible, inconceivable. So similarly, for someone to come and say, by the way, there are beings who live for more than 1 million years, for us, it's just a joke. It's incomprehensible. But some yogis in different cultures, you know, when there was the exchange or stealing of different knowledge from different cultures and including them into their own sacred texts, they took those elements and many times they turned it into infinity. Long lifespan of 1 million years suddenly became infinity, forever and ever and ever and ever. So here we have an example of that within the thinking of Baka, the Brahma God. And we're going to see more as the story or the sutta develops. But here is something that we're going to see, which raises some eyebrows for some people, because if you didn't know already, Mara that we have in Buddhism, sometimes referred to as the mischievous one, or the wicked one, or the evil one, the great deceiver. He happens to be from one of those realms, but they are subordinate to the Brahma realms, but they're pretty close. And there is a realm that is called the Paranimita, which is basically the realm of those gods that control the creations of other gods. So typically people say, oh, Mara is from there, from that realm, because they like to mess around those beings, because they just have so much power. That was one of their aspirations, but it is drenched in wrong view. Why? Because they enjoy watching, witnessing the mishaps and the misfortunes of others, especially when they are unable to pierce through and see the reality of things, to see the Four Noble Truths. So they want to keep, Mara specifically wants to keep beings in avijja, willful ignoring or staying deluded, not piercing through. That's why typically every single practitioner of this Dhamma and discipline will encounter Mara in one form or another on their path to awakening. Okay? So having that in mind, although very brief, so we're going to see here the interjection of Mara into the scene, how he comes into, have his influence. It was at that moment, bhikkhus, when Mara, the evil one, having cunningly infiltrated his way into the retinue of the Brahma gods, by taking possession of the heart of one of those in the retinue, while remaining undetected, began addressing me with these words. So you have another Brahma, or one of his hosts or companions, or his subordinate beings, I guess, who now starts to speak, but his heart is dominated, his chitta is dominated, deluded by the influence of Mara. So Mara can delude so long as you are within these realms. You are basically within the grasp of Mara. So here we see effectively in the sutta something that you don't see, because you have billions of people in the world, at least 1.5 billion, or close to that, who really take on Brahma gods as what one needs to aspire to. In the case of Hinduism and for thousands of years, there's the Brahmin class, which is the highest class within that structure, caste system of India. Not just in India, by the way, you also see this in Hindu cultures outside of India, such as in Bali, for example, where the person is called a Brahmin. Why? Person is called a Brahmin because if they go through the rituals, if they go and do the rituals and do the mantras correctly, chanting them, learning the Vedas, etc., then by living a Brahmin-like life with those ideals, let's say, ideals of Mahabrahma, then they will be reborn in his companionship, within his retinue. So we see this still, obviously, and we will for who knows how long, as a core belief of a culture, of a religion, okay? But here in this sutta, and throughout the Buddha's dispensation, you see how people didn't like Lord Buddha explaining things in a way that completely turned their belief system upside down. Because here you're seeing a Brahma God being deluded, having wrong view. not having an infinitely long or unending lifespan, where he has miccāditthi, wrong view. How could that be? Because, well, this person is our God. We worship this. So that's another reason why many people don't like Buddhism, because the Dhamma, especially the Dhamma that is closest to the historical Buddha's teachings, of course, because as centuries went on, you had many of those elements coming in and being squeezed into the Dhamma and polluting it in different traditions that developed within Buddhism. So here is Mara's interjection. Oh, Bhikkhu, Bhikkhu, leave our Lord alone. Stop harassing our Lord, for he is Brahma, the Maha-Brahma himself. He is truly the Supreme Lord, the great vanquisher and ruler, the undefeated Lord of all beings, the ultimate creator and chief of us all, those of us who are, and all those who are yet to become, our very Father and the oldest among us. He indeed is the most glorious and supreme. Long before you, so it's continuing, long before you, Bhikkhu, there have been others in existence, other recluses and Brahmins who also denounced, looked down upon, and scorned the earth element and its solidity, who denounced, looked down upon, and scorned the water element and its penetrative fluidity and cohesiveness, who denounced, looked down upon, and scorned the fire element and its heat quality, who denounced, looked down upon, and scorned the air element and its windy, moving quality. Similarly, they would denounce, look down upon, and scorn other beings. They would denounce, look down upon, and scorn the devas. They would also denounce, look down upon, and scorn even Pajapati, the predecessor to all, as well as Brahma himself. Now, upon the breakup of their bodies at death, all these recluses and Brahmins were reborn into the miserable lower realms. Basically, they thought, because you are now saying the same thing, essentially, the way we hear it here, he's saying. So if you keep thinking like this, you're also going to go into the lower realms. You're going to fall. On the other hand, there were also other those recluses and Brahmins in existence who worshipped, praised, and venerated the earth element and its solidity, who worshipped, praised, and venerated the water element, etc., the fire element. I'm just jumping because there's a lot to cover. The air element, similarly, they would worship, praise, and venerate other beings. They would worship, praise, and venerate the devas. They would also worship, praise, and venerate Pajapati, the predecessor to all, as well as Brahma himself. Now, upon the breakup of their bodies at death, all these recluses and Brahmins were reborn into the delightful and happy higher realms, in contrast to the others mentioned. So, Bhikkhu, heed my advice and listen for your own good. Do not question or doubt the words spoken to you by our Lord Brahma and take them as absolute truth. Otherwise, you would be missing an incredibly rare opportunity for your welfare, just like that man who pushed out good fortune itself that had fallen into his lap, driving it off and away with a beating stick, instead of benefiting from the many blessings it would have bestowed upon him. Do not be like that man who is about to fall off a precipice, but who instead chooses to kick away and refuse to grab hold of the rocks and roots of vines with his hands or feet that would otherwise have saved him from his fall and therefore his certain death. So, Bhikkhu, heed my advice and listen for your own good. Do not question or doubt the words spoken to you by our Lord Brahma and take them as absolute truth. After all, Bhikkhu, don't you see the glorious assembly here? The vast retinue of Brahma all gathered here around our Lord and his eternal magnificence. In this manner, Bhikkhus, Mara the evil one kept addressing me while cajoling the entire company of Brahma with his deception, undetected. Then, Bhikkhus, once he had spoken his words, I addressed Mara the evil one by saying, I know who you are, evil one. Do not think to yourself, he doesn't see or know it's me, because I do see and know you, Mara. You cannot hide from me, Mara. You are the evil one, having cunningly infiltrated your way into the retinue of the Brahma gods. You have taken possession of the heart of one of their own in the retinue. But while remaining undetected, you address me by thinking to yourself, ah, I can fool this one also, and make him fall for my tricks and be under my power and control. But that is impossible, O evil one. I can never fall for your tricks, nor ever somehow come under your power or control. So this is traditionally you don't hear people talking about the presence of Mara. Within the sutta, really it comes out. And you have another sutta in the Samyutta Nikāya where you have another aspect of the same encounter, the same event. There, it's more of Lord Buddha and Baka Brahmā having this conversation. Forgot, I think forgot the sutta number, but it's in the Samyutta Nikāya and the connected discourses, where Lord Buddha, it's not as long of a sutta as this one, but Lord Buddha addresses Baka by pointing out, highlighting Baka's past lives, which Baka does not remember. And he gives him examples as to, or definitive causal conditions that resulted in him being reborn now in a higher realm as a Brahma. And Lord Buddha lists several of those, such as him in a previous life having assisted refugees, individuals who were struggling to run away because they were being persecuted. Another life, he saved many people by releasing them from prison, innocent people. Another time, saved them from a Naga attacking them, trying to eat them from their, destroying their ships. So he saves them by using his psychic abilities at that time. So many examples Lord Buddha gives, but that's in the Samyutta Nikāya. In this one, Lord Buddha is addressing, this is a deeper sutta, because as you just saw, we just talked about the Chatu Mahabhuta, the four primary elements. And anytime you see those represented, Lord Buddha is trying to show us the fastest way to arahantship. Even by, it's not like Lord Buddha is trying to tell this story to the students, to the bhikkhus, so that they can be just like, yeah, that was our teacher. No, there has to be a purpose in Lord Buddha teaching the Dhamma. There's a shaking off of the tree so that the dead leaves can fall, so you can actually gain something from the Dhamma. Meaning to penetrate through and allow the person break through with the understanding of what makes this physical reality. Earth is not necessarily just the earth element, like the solid or the rock, or the water is the water element. No, it's beyond that. We've talked about this several times in previous talks, where it is the quality. Being so attached to one's own views has the quality of heaviness, solidity, earth element. Being so easy at attaching yourself to some ideology, to some thought, has the element of cohesiveness. Attachment, craving has that quality, but craving also is hot. When you really want something, what is that creating? Even your blood pressure rises, your skin texture, the tension, as well as the heat of the body rises. What is that? That's the fire element. When you're too restless in your meditation, what's going on? How would you describe that? That's the air element. It's windy, it's never staying. It's always moving. So, but people like to hold on to things, and having a belief, trying to own something, including the Dhamma, means that the person is now a slave to the four primary elements. You're too chained up in your views, in your understanding of even something as noble as the Dhamma. So now Lord Buddha is going to be addressing, actually, Baka the Brahmā tries convincing the Buddha. That's the heading. Now, bhikkhus, once I spoke these words to Mara, then Baka addressed me again by saying, but good sir, whatever I have said to be permanent and everlasting is so, because it truly is. So he actually believes that, because it truly is fixed, in fact, imperishable and forever lasting. After all, this is what is meant by being eternal. And he repeats that. Therefore, here's where it is an undeniable fact that neither birth nor aging nor death could ever be found or experienced anymore. So he believes that neither him nor his people, his retinue, will ever die. Thus, bhikkhu, so they're addressing Lord Buddha as a bhikkhu, just a bhikkhu. So I can tell you with certainty that there definitely is nothing higher, no further escape and safety to be found anywhere beyond this. Long before you, O bhikkhu, there have been many others in existence, other recluses and Brahmins who strived in their ascetic practices of self-mortification for long enough of a time that would span your whole entire life. So they've spent many years, much longer than your entire life so far, practicing asceticism, self-mortification. And they also reached the same conclusion, bhikkhu, declaring the same truth I have declared to you, as they too saw, and with certainty, that there indefinitely is nothing higher, no further escape and safety to be found anywhere beyond this. You go to some yogis to this day, people who have been practicing in India, let's say Himalayas, or other places in the world, and they will, honestly, will tell you, yeah, this is right. They will even probably describe to you more details of, yeah, Brahma this, Brahma that, or Vishnu this, and then they die. Their whole gaze, their whole view, their perspective. If you start with a small perspective, if you start with a range of vision that is narrow, then it has more to do with your perspective, not with whatever it is that you're viewing. Why? Just like in the case of fine arts, when I was in fine arts, you can think of many more examples from your own lives, I'm sure. But we used to sit around an object. So the teacher, the professor would come and place an object, a vase or a fruit bowl with some fruits in there in the middle, or some objects, and we would sit circling this main object in this big room, and we would start drawing. Now, you would get it, from your angle, whatever it is that you're viewing. And some of my colleagues, they were really good. And you would get the nice toning and shading and would go, wow. But then the ones next to me, let's say, and then I would walk around the room, and they would encourage us to do that and sit in different locations. Suddenly, it's like a totally different world. Now you're looking the same object, but from a different angle. It's like that image that Lord Buddha gave of those blind men from birth, which I've addressed, and I'm sure you know, where a group of them go ahead and touch one area of the body of the elephant, and then they swear by that to the king, saying, no, 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 Lord, the elephant is a very big column, but it's alive. Another one says, no, 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 no. It's like it's a fan. It's a fan because they touch the ear of the elephant, etc., etc. So that is what we're dealing with, which people have turned into an entire philosophical school where you have countless generations of people come and go and drenched in wrong view, because there is this belief of a me versus you, an object, subject, ideas. So it's just a matter of crossing that threshold where you're going to live with your own delusion. That's why Lord Buddha, in all his teachings, you see, he says to be stuck in any of these 31 realms of existence means you failed. You failed in the Dhamma. You're not practicing my teaching. To want to be reborn in any of these realms, including the Brahma realms, you've cut yourself short. You sold yourself short, basically. So, because the delusion is so intense. So in this description of his own beliefs, Baka, the Brahmā Gods that is worshipped by countless people, is no different than any other person that you see on the road who has beliefs about their world. No difference whatsoever. Yes, okay, fine, Baka doesn't have the sexual, sensual lusts. Fine. But he has delusion. He's very much, he has craving in him. Definitely, because the asavas have not been relinquished. He doesn't even have a concept about the asavas, or about the kileshas, because he is drenched in moha, and he believes that. So Lord Buddha is going to try to explain this fact to him. So you must see, Bhikkhu, that insofar as you rely on and are attached to the earth element, depending on the presence of solidity, so long as you hold on to it and identify with your role and relationship to it, then you will never be far from me. So long as you are holding on, attached to the earth, patavi, element, then you're always going to be next to me. For you will always remain within my domain, subjugated to my dominion, inescapably within my net, as well as dispensable to whatever I wish, according to my dictates, where you ultimately have no escape, possessing no ultimate refuge and nothing else beyond my absolute rulership over everything, including you. So you are my subject. And you have countless people throughout history who are totally fine with that. Every day you have billions of people worshiping some higher being, including in Buddhism. And then where does the wisdom lie? Where does the responsibility lie? Even through our practice of sila, we must be gaining a deeper understanding of reality. Through us, our tendencies, etc., our fears, our expectations, our desires, is sila, or our practice of virtue, simply a means to an end. In this case, the end being reborn in a higher realm. Many, many people do that. Or generosity. My practice of generosity, is it simply as a means to an end to gain a higher rebirth? Many people practice jhana and have been practicing jhana, meditation itself, whether jhana or non-jhana. For what purpose? Is their right view? Well, how could that be, Bhante? I'm practicing jhana. It's like Lord Buddha, talks about it in the sutta, so I am practicing Lord Buddha's teachings. The teaching is not the problem. What are you latching on to? What are you holding on to? What have you turned into a possession? Some ownership, upadhi in Pali. Possession doesn't mean actual physical possession. Yes, gold, silver, this property are possessions, yes, but they're not the only ones. Your practice, how you view, well, I keep my sila. That is a possession. Well, I can go into meditation, I can stay in this jhana and that jhana. That is a possession. While I have insights, this and that, I have tasted, I don't know, non-self, anatta, I have known that. That is a possession. Well, I know Dhamma, that is a possession. We are far away from the Dhamma. Why? Because there's this latching on. You're holding. There is the element of solidity. And Brahma is saying such, in a way, he's saying the truth. In a way, that if we are holding on to solidity, the presence of the earth element, then we are in his grasp. We're in the matrix. And we don't even know it. We think that we are not, but we are. Similarly, Bhikkhu, insofar as you rely on and are attached to the water element, depending on the presence of its penetrative fluidity, so long as you hold on to it and identify with your role and relationship to it, then you will never be, relationship indicates subject object. Okay, there is this connection, there is this thing. The Buddha is there, I am here. I have to get there. So in a way, it's very infantile, the approach. Very, not much has changed since kindergarten then. Not much has changed from even our previous, perhaps our religious practices or beliefs. We just changed outfits. And then he repeats, if you, so long as you do that with the earth element, water element, I'm just going to jump, the presence of the fire, element, the air element, similarly, Bhikkhu, insofar as you rely on and are attached to other beings, depending on their presence, so long as you hold on to them and identify with your role and relationship to them, other beings, it could be human or otherwise. You have individuals who pray to saints, who pray to teachers. So there's this fondness in today's Buddhist, especially in Theravada, not just Theravada, actually, Vajrayana and others, where people give so much credence. It's like they've turned it, they've sanctified the teacher. The teacher is their way to the divine type of a thing. They're the spirituality. So it's servility. On the other hand, you have the self-overestimation of oneself. So these are temptations. These are huge hindrances, blocks, where you're not too far from, by the way, as practitioners, so long as you are not an arahant. Lord Buddha says so in the book of the Sixes, in the Anguttara Nikāya. If a person wants to become an arahant, works towards becoming an arahant, if they have conceit, if they have inferiority conceit, if they have superiority conceit, if they have servility, if they have self-overestimation, self-overestimation, and I forgot the sixth one, but basically all dealing with conceit, me and you relationship, then arahantship is far from us. Far from us. Similarly, Bhikkhu, insofar as you rely on and are attached to the devas, depending on their presence, so long as you hold on to them and identify with your role and relationship to them, then you will never be far from me. I remember when I was a child growing up in Lebanon, where we lived in that part of the neighborhood, every month or so you would see a new small altar being built on the street, on the road. People would see a vision of Virgin Mary, and they would put a statue of Virgin Mary, and now every time we passed in front of it, we had to cross ourselves, and then people would light candles, and it's like put flowers. Okay, so some streets would have several of these. So now you're delayed by the time you get to your destination. Why? Because, well, you have to pay reverence. Why? Because now you also have fear. Because what if you don't do that? Oh, you're disrespectful. You're not going to get heavenly birth or something like that. It's like, or you're not, God is angry at you, type of a thing. Well, the same thing you find in Buddhism. You see it all over. So it's not with the religion. The problem is not with the religion itself, in this case. It's with people being foolish enough to believe in these, having these wrong views. Similarly, Bhikkhu, and so far as you rely on and are attached to Pajapati, the predecessor to all, depending on his presence, so long as you hold on to him and identify with your role and relationship to him, then you will never be far from me, for you will always remain within my domain, subjugated to my dominion, inescapably. Excuse me. Similarly, Bhikkhu, insofar as you rely on and are attached to Brahma, depending on his presence, so long as you hold on to him and identify, etc., etc., then you are within nothing else. There is nothing beyond my absolute rulership over everything, including you. So here's where Lord Buddha challenges Baka, the Brahma God. Oh, Brahma, you do not seem to grasp that I too know that, insofar as I were to rely on and attach to the earth element, depending on the presence of solidity, so long as I were to hold on to it or identify with my role and relationship to it, then I would indeed never be far from you. So Lord Buddha is agreeing with Baka. So in that sense, I was saying earlier, Baka in some way is actually saying the truth. So long as we're attached to any of these elements, plus our adherence to our loved ones, our beings, our relationships, and worshiping them, turning them into these absolute things. Same thing with the devas or some god out there, some superior being, faceless or with a face. So long as I have that belief in something like that, there's an object and subject reality for me, then absolutely, Baka, I would be in your grasp, Lord Buddha saying. He says, I know that. I know that. Same thing he's saying about the other elements. So Baka now is like really going to be confused, like, what? So you're agreeing with me, but you're saying I'm not eternal? So Lord Buddha says that all the way to the Brahma. Similarly, with the Brahma God, if I were to rely on and am attached to Brahma, then yes, absolutely, I'm subjugated to your dominion. Therefore, I know perfectly well the course of your existences. Aha. Here is where Lord Buddha's challenge begins. I know where you've come from, Lord Buddha is saying, to Baka. The range of your dominion, the span of control you possess, and how far it is that you can reach and exercise your power, as well as its limitations. So this really would get Baka's attention, his limitations. But wait a minute, I'm the absolute. I have no limitations whatsoever. And then Baka Brahma asked, but sir, how do you perfectly know the course of my existences and the full range and span of control that I possess? And how far do you think is it that I can reach and exercise my power? Furthermore, what do you think are my limitations? The full range and span of control that you possess extends only as far as the moon and the sun could reach with their brilliance as they course through the sky, lighting up this galaxy and its various sectors. Also, the various ranges and capacities of most beings, those who have passion in their hearts and those who do not. You also see the coming and going of most beings through the various realms, as well as the different states of becoming they take rebirth into. So Baka is like, yeah, you just highlighted my resume. You just pointed out all my capabilities. So now he's like, you're not supposed to know these things, but you did. I do see beings come and go. I do see worlds come and go. It is in this way, Lord Buddha continues, that I know perfectly well the range of your dominion, the span of control you possess, and how far it is that you can reach and exercise your power. However, I also know clearly the course of your existences as well as your limitations. For instance, there exists other realms where certain beings are reborn into, such as the 3 types of worlds which you are absolutely clueless about, unaware that they even exist, but which I, on the other hand, am fully aware of, as I can clearly know and see them. There is the realm of streaming radiance, Abhasara, where, by the way, you had been reborn into and lived for some time, but from where you passed away eventually. And by falling out from it, you landed into this realm, a higher realm. Now, given that you have spent such a long time here in this realm, during that extended stretch of time, you have lost all memory of your past, having forgotten everything pertaining to your prior existences. This I directly know as a fact and can see clearly. So, Brahma, as it relates to having higher knowledge, I am not your equal, let alone being inferior to you, for I know far more than you can imagine. So this is starting to shake Brahma in his, as they say, boots. Like, wait a minute. There's other realms, and you know where I was before this, which, by the way, I don't recall. This opens up a whole, like, for him, like a huge possibility, because Lord Buddha just said higher realm into this realm. Okay, so we're still okay. What about a lower realm to this realm? So then you mean to say there's the possibility for me, it's a two-way street, right? Right? I hope. So all these questions must be running through the mind of Baka. And you start to get threatened, but also scared of the person who's divulging this information to you. And as far as not remembering, you can think of places that you've lived for extended periods of time. Even if you go on a retreat for 10 days or a month, or you live in a place, let's say, for a few years, you develop new memories associated with that place, with the people around that location where you are, you interact with. And then you leave and you go somewhere else and you spend 10 more years in another place. What happens to these? They're not as real to you, and they're just a distant memory until you forget so many details which you thought you would never forget. Time has that quality about it. Now, when we are talking about beyond, like, billions of years, beyond, I'm not even talking about 1,000 years, not even a year, gives you a little bit of, like, you really want to squeeze yourself back into your seat and just, like, whoa, the mind. How deep does this thing go? Let's not forget, Lord Buddha himself was very much, when people would talk about his past lives and how far should we go and this and that, is there a beginning point? Lord Buddha would say, it's a way, don't go looking for it. That is a waste, but it's a good practice to go into your past lives to gain some understanding as to why you are the way you are. Why is this happening to you? In that sense, it can work. So it's got a scientific, it can really work marvels when it's used like that, instead of turning into a point of discussion in a party. Like it happened to me once. I was at a retreat, actually, not a party, and the person I met, and I on the retreat, immediately the first conversation we had, the very first conversation, he and I was simply giving him the tea, or I was waiting for him to to pour his tea, and I was waiting for my turn, something like that. And I said, it hadn't begun yet, the retreat itself, and I said, you look very familiar to me. we've never met. I feel this familiarity with you. And it was a very innocent moment. And he looked at me and like, I guess, scanned me upside down psychically. And he goes, that's strange. I don't think I've ever encountered you, or I don't think we've ever met. I can remember 800 of my lives, and I don't see you in any one of them. I was like, whoa, 800, not 5, 50, 70, 751, 800. And I can't see you in any one of them. I can look back. I was like, whoa. So, interesting. Yeah. Furthermore, Brahma, there is the realm of radiant glory, Subhakinha, where you had also been reborn into and lived for some time, but from where you eventually passed away, and by falling out from it, you landed into this realm. Now again, given that you have spent such a long time here in this realm, during that extended stretch of time, you have also lost all memory of your past, having forgotten everything pertaining to your prior existences. This I directly know as a fact and can see clearly. Interesting that in the Theravādas, which I'm currently translating, you see this again and again with some bhikkhus, some arahants, who, when they, the term that we see a lot in the suttas are the three supramundane knowledges, or the three knowledges, or the three higher knowledges. One is the ability to see one's own past lives. And you see this again and again and again. And so many of the arahants, not only the arahants, by the way, there were other bhikkhus who would practice, not just bhikkhus also, bhikkhunis too, but also lay people would remember countless lifetimes. So in that sense, when you bring that into this context, in front of the Baka Brahmā situation, you see that even such a mediocre level meditator, who has, however, developed that skill, it's a skill, they would have access to more knowledge, more information, meaning more memories as to where they were from. They would see that they too were Brahma once. So many examples you see in the suttas, including the Theravāda, as I mentioned, where you see some bhikkhus will say, several times I was Mahabrahma, several times I was Sakka, king of the gods, the realm of the 33. So many times I was in the hell realms. They will say that. And now I am reborn in the human realm. Information is wonderful when it leads us to right view. So we need to know where we're starting from. What information are we basing our perspective of life on? Because you can easily be spending a whole lifetime like those yogis that both Mara and Baka mentioned. They've lived their entire lives with the wrong concept, approach, perspective. They never challenged it. And here in this, group audience, each of us, rare, it is rare for us to be coming from a Buddhist past background. Most of us have come from non-Buddhist background. Where does that come from? Why would anyone? Because you wanted to challenge. Some things didn't fit. Some things were wrong. Some things were like, and then you would go exploring. You go exploring. That is what is necessary. That is flexibility in its purest form, I see. But once you gain that, okay, so you continue digging. What we cannot do is we pitch our tent somewhere, some idea, something that fits our narrative, what fits our likes and doesn't fit our dislikes. Because that's a huge trap, which I see 99% of practitioners being stuck in this Dhamma and discipline. Go figure. So many people within the Dhamma, including within this teaching, within this practice, within this patipada. So it's selective, selective, selective. Even within that, 99% of us are stuck because there is this ownership. There's this, I like this because it fits something in my thinking, my constitution, my proclivities, my something. And that is also being a slave to those four great primaries. For that, we need to have the softness, the flexibility, the curiosity, the innocence of exploration. To find the truth. Is this really getting rid of my pain? Pain of craving. There's nothing like it. That's true pain. But only you will know the different subtle layers of that. And meditation will help you. An arahant is a person who's gone all the way to the bottom. Did not leave a single rock unturned, unflipped, single stone unturned. Why? Because they're genuine. They're not, is this taking me straight to final nibbana in this life while I'm alive? That should be the goal. Not attaining this level of this and that. And why sell yourself short? This is the biggest award you have, the rarity of a human birth. And you're able to listen, you're able to process, you're able to understand, read. Wow. Every sutta has to be approached with that perspective, with that approach, I think. Anyhow, also Brahma, there is the realm of abundant fruit, Veha Phala, where you had also been reborn into and lived for some time. But from where you passed away eventually, and by falling out from it, you landed into this realm. That is a realm that is below the pure abodes. The pure abodes, if you recall, are the realms where anagamis are reborn into. Those are the individuals who have completely cut off the 5 lower fetters, including craving, not just sensuality, but just craving and lust and should be ideas too, and anger, hatred, as well as the other 3 personality view, adhering to that, and rites and rituals, and doubt about the Dhamma. Those 5 are gone. So now they only have the higher 5 fetters. So for them, there are these other realms that are inaccessible to anyone who is not an anagami. So no Mara is going to come even close to that realm, any of them, because it's complete unknown for anyone other than anagamis. Or arahants who have landed and become arahants there, or those who have practiced in that realm and became arahants, etc. So anyhow, this is a realm below that, but still it's far higher than the Brahma realms where he ended up. So Lord Buddha listed just now 3 different realms of which he's completely clueless, this Baka. Now again, given that you have spent so much time, etc., Lord Buddha repeats that, this I directly know as a fact and can see clearly. So Brahma, as it relates to having higher knowledge, I am not your equal, let alone being inferior to you, for I know far more than you can imagine. Furthermore, Brahma, having understood through actual higher knowledge earth as earth, while directly seeing its properties of solidity, and having understood through actual higher knowledge all that does not partake of nor identifies with the earthiness and solidity of earth, I did not claim to be one and the same as earth. Pataving napahosing. In Pali, I did not claim to be in or on earth. Pataviya napahosing. I did not claim to be from or belonging to earth. Patavito napahosing. I did not claim earth as mine. Pataving meti napahosing. I did not assert nor claim earth to be more than what it is. Pataving nabhivading. So Brahma, as it relates to having higher knowledge, I am not your equal, let alone being inferior to you, for I know far more than you can imagine. The problem is we do that. So long as we are putujjana, so long as we are not arahants, we are practicing that, which is taking the earth, the solidity, Again, it could be concepts, it could be a belief, it could be one's own, whatever they like. It could be one's own culture, one's own likes and dislikes, even the dislikes. You take it as solidity. I can't stand it when she does that, or I can't stand these people. What is that? That is solidity. You've turned it, objectified it. Or belonging to earth, or seeing the earth as mine. Everybody's in the business of saving something. Save this, save that, save the earth, save that, whatever. Meanwhile, I have a flimsy lifespan here on this planet. How in the world am I going to save anything? I can't even save myself. Who am I saving? Really, ultimately. Because I'm coming from my own concepts as to what things are supposed to be like. So this is basically shaking. It gives an earthquake shake to our ego, because there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. And we don't have the term ego in the Dhamma, of course, but we do have something that's far more in-depth and multi-layered than that, which can be a proxy for ego, and that is asmimana, the conceit am. I am. Remember the object, subject, object, subject, object. So long as there is that, then yes, absolutely, Baka, I will be your subordinate. I will be in your trap. Brahmajala Sutta is the first of the Digha Nikāya suttas, a deep sutta, and that's where we have the net of Brahma's views. Whose net? Brahma's net. What is a net used for? To trap, to capture. And that's what people are, where people are. It's the first sutta of the 34 suttas in the Digha Nikāya, the long discourses. You have this there, structure. But that's one sutta that people avoid. The other one that they like to avoid, in fact, they are encouraged to avoid by teachers, monks, mahatheras, scholars, that is the Mulapariyaya Sutta, which is the first of the Majjhima Nikāya, which is like the secret code book of all the suttas to follow, the 151 suttas to follow in the Majjhima Nikāya, and every sutta, pretty much, in all of the Nikāyas. These are the maps for those. But it's so, like, people say, no, you're not going to understand it. It's too complicated. It's too dry. It's an abstraction. It's like not going to find. But that's where Lord Buddha just addresses all of these wrong views, in a sense, and how and why we are caught in samsara. Because it's not like you can continue practicing, doing the things that you do, or meditation, this and that, and drop everything else, meaning leaving your relationship with the four elements, the primaries, meaning your relationship with what is solid, how you take things, people, including, and all that, the view of the cosmos, and etc. If you're very strongly holding on to those and saying, no, these are like, these are sacrosanct, I can't touch them, I'm just going to meditate, I'm just going to, and somehow I'm going to become an arahant. It's not going to work. And that's why a lot of people eventually, after some time, they say, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Let me go explore somewhere else in a different tradition, or let me try psychedelics. Yes, you have that in meditators, because they reach that glass ceiling, as it were, meditative glass ceiling. And they will never go beyond it, because there is so much moha, delusion, underlying it all. And that's one of the reasons why people need to learn and study and explore the suttas, the Pali suttas. They have to. At least listen to or now I'm also recording the Theragatas. Still have a long way to go, but at least familiarize yourself with the journey, individual journey of each of these bhikkhus who were like you and I. But they became arahants. You cannot become an arhat. You cannot attain to that freedom from samsara while holding on to these ownerships, basically. This is me, this is who I am, asmimana. Again, that is what Lord Buddha is addressing here with the four elements. So I'm jumping forward here because it's a repetition, but Lord Buddha is addressing each of these elements, and then he goes to the beings category. Similarly, Brahma, having understood through actual higher knowledge beings as beings, and having understood through actual higher knowledge all that does not partake of nor identifies with beings. I did not claim to be one and the same as beings. If I take beings as beings, by the way, this is the best way I could use those terms in Pali and still make it coherent to us in our culture, contextually, is when you take a being as being, you are basically saying you are fixed. You are now no longer subject to temporality. The temporariness or the transitoriness, meaning impermanence, is taken out. Whenever you call someone by their name, whenever you look at something and say, that's a man, that's a woman, that's a thing, that's a this, that's a that, you're also practicing asmimana, by the way. The am, conceit, I am. You're saying, I've just drawn a firm, tight, with crazy glue edges, tied up, framed you, basically. That's who you are. And that's why language will always fail to convey what the Dhamma is trying to say. It's so hard to break through, however, the language barrier, not the sound barrier or the light barrier or the speed barrier. The language barrier, I think, is far more difficult because it's such a personal affair. And that's why a person can become even a Brahma and still be deeply drenched, stuck in the thick tar of delusion. So Lord Buddha continues, as it relates to having our knowledge, I'm not your equal, let alone being inferior to you. Furthermore, Brahma, having understood through actual higher knowledge the Abhasara God. So now he's saying that those three realms I just mentioned, Abhasara and the Subhakina gods and the Vehapala gods, from where you dropped, by the way, in your journey through samsara, where you landed here and you think this is it. Well, you probably said this is it when in your previous incarnations, in your previous births, where you spent a lot longer time probably than this one. The sutta doesn't say how long he spent there. Lord Buddha is simply making a reference. So he's not giving a quantifiable description. He's just mentioning that he was there and still be stuck. So Brahma, as it relates to having higher knowledge, I am not your equal, let alone being inferior to you. Therefore, Brahma, so long as you have not reached the higher knowledge, whereby you may come to know the allness of the all, lacking the knowledge and range of understanding, hence, not knowing all that there is to be known, does it not then render all your statements about being the absolute or the eternal as simply empty, hollow, and utterly void? So basically, seeing that you can't even match my memory, my understanding, direct experience, higher knowledge of seeing you in those realms, you can't even remember that, which means you're limited, terribly limited. Not only that, the other two lifetimes in different realms, you can't even recall those. How can you say that you're the absolute, the eternal, or the most powerful being? That makes your statements null and void. That's what Lord Buddha just said. So you see, again, Baka, Brahma, as it relates to having higher knowledge, I am not your equal, let alone being inferior to you. For I know far more than you can imagine. Consciousness which makes nothing manifest, where nothing lands or rests upon, as it remains infinite and all lustrous. It is that which does not partake of the earthiness of earth, the wateriness of water, the fieriness of fire, the airiness of air, the beingness of beings, the devahood of devas, the pajapatihood of pajapati, the brahmahood of brahma, the streaming radiance of the abhasara brahmas, the radiant gloriousness of the subhakinha brahmas, the abundant fruition of the vehapala brahmas, the overlordship of the overlord, and the allness of the all. Nobody's left outside. There's no loopholes left. Everything is included. And nothing lands. In essence, Lord Buddha just described the state of the Arahant. This is another term for the Arahantship, whose consciousness nothing lands on. And that's why they do not make any new kamma. It just is happening. If you recall from the Bahya Sutta, where Lord Buddha is describing to giving Bahya his meditation technique, the Dhamma, which he was so desperately craving, having run about 700 miles in 3 days. And Lord Buddha says, Dite ditamatang bhavisati. So when seeing, there's just seeing. Sute sutamatang bhavisati. When there is only listening, well, in hearing something, there will only be the hearing. Mute mutamatang bhavisati. When there is the sensing, there will only be sensing in you, bahya. Vinyate vinyatamatang bhavisati. When there is knowing, cognizing of something, there will be just the cognizing of something. So the person never grabs on. There's never ownership of even an idea that is passing. You see it for what it is, which is what we essentially are cognitively, consciously, if you will, are trying to do when we meditate, when you're practicing sati and we're just allowing things to be. That is what you're trying to do. You're trying to practice what Lord Buddha gave to Bahya. You're not trying to staple your name, your tag, your sign, your name on it. No. Because the moment you do, that means that you just established a subject and an object relationship. You are now worshiping Baka, the Brahma. You are now in the clutches of the 4 primary elements. And that is a realm that is left behind by the Arahants. Lord Buddha is giving him a clue. Anidassana vijnana is the Pali term for consciousness, which makes nothing manifest. It doesn't carry it from room to room. Now, that doesn't mean that they have amnesia, but they don't hold on to anything. That's the thing. It was at that point, because that Baka Brahma snapped back by saying, well, let us do a test and see as to your range of knowledge and power compared to mine, sir, as he kept on saying. So in a sense, I understand Baka's position, because he's almost scientific, one might say. He's applying the empirical method, because he's saying, well, I'm not going to take your word for my past lives. It's impressive, don't get me wrong, but I like to see something that I have control over, this domain, and I want you to. So he says, I will vanish from the recluse Gautama. I will vanish from the recluse Gautama. So I replied and said, this is Lord Buddha responding, well then, Brahma, go ahead and try to vanish from me. That is, if you are able to. So this is an interesting duel that's happening, almost like, but this is what usually is shared in the cultural folklore that we have in Southeast Asia, especially when people talk about this incident, if they do, this give and take with the Brahma, Baka, and Lord Buddha. But bhikkhus, try as he did, Baka Brahmā could not vanish nor hide from me. Then I told him, now, Brahmā, it is my turn to vanish. And Baka Brahmā said, very well, sir. Try and vanish from my all-seeing vision, if you can. Then, bhikkhus, I determined psychically, may Baka Brahmā and his retinue of Brahmas not be able to see me, but only remain able to hear the sound of my voice. So I vanished from their sight completely. However, I spoke these words to them, which they could all clearly hear. By directly seeing and knowing that ultimately there is no refuge to be sought in any realm of being, realizing the horrific danger in further becoming itself, which sooner or later comes to its painful end, I did not seek any form of becoming ever again, nor did I grab on to, relish, or look for further assets to call my own. Assets is another term for upadi, which I was saying, possessions, assets. So Lord Buddha just gave him Dhamma while they couldn't even see him. This probably is one of those rare times throughout the suttas where you see such an incident where Lord Buddha's voice is present, but he physically, well, vanished. Okay. It was at that point, bhikkhus, that Baka Brahmā and his retinue of Brahmas were all delighted and deeply moved by the wonder they were witnessing. Thus they exclaimed, "This is truly marvelous. This is incredible indeed, good sir. Never have we seen such power, such wonder. For truly great are the psychic abilities of the recluse Gautama. Great is his majesty. Of this we are now all certain. For we have never before witnessed, never seen or heard any recluse or Brahmin to have such tremendous abilities as recluse Gautama, the son of the Sakyans, who left behind his Sakyan family and kingdom and simply went forth. It is truly a privilege and a wonderful honor to observe that while living among a generation of people who keep delighting in further becoming, who are infatuated with further and further becoming, celebrating and rejoicing in further becoming, being reborn again and again, he, on the other hand, has indeed pulled out the desire for rebecoming from its very root. So to be able to do that, it's, yes, it talks about, it's saying a lot about Lord Buddha's determination, but also him having gotten sick and tired of seeing the painful cycles of samsara. And fortunately, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, as the saying goes, because we do have the wheel. We do have the Dhamma. It's a beautiful statement now, think of it. Reinventing the wheel, that term in English, the wheel of Dhamma. We have the Dhamma, don't we? It's still there. It's still here. How many of us are actually living with that urgency? This is not someone else's suffering, but that's the easiest thing that Mara will drive us to. Oh, I want to alleviate the suffering of others. So what's wrong with my suffering? That's the stupidest thing anyone could say, I think, when they're neglecting their own suffering in samsara. That's one of the reasons why I say first become an arahant, then everything will fall into place. That doesn't mean you're ignoring other people's pain. Absolutely not. Nobody comes close to Lord Buddha and the Arahants when it comes to the compassion department, the kindness. Nobody could even hold a candle next to him. The level of softness, tenderness, not even the best of mothers could compare to the love that Lord Buddha had and has even to this day, to the 2,600 years almost. And his words are so tender and soft, but also firm when necessary. So even the Brahmas are, are using as they're giving their testimony in a sense. That in a world where everybody wants to be reborn, even to be reborn in our realm as in the Brahma realm, you go to India, that's their goal. That's why they're called Brahmins. Their ultimate destination, ultimate, from where they will never fall back, talk about wrong view, is to land in the realm of Brahmas. Which, by the way, the Brahmas are going, I don't think that's the good place to come to, guys. Because this isn't it. Apparently, we just found out. And let's see now, Mara hasn't left the building yet, apparently. The heading is silencing Mara, the evil one. Then, suddenly, Bhikkhus, Mara, the evil one, again, having cunningly infiltrated his way into the retinue of the Brahma gods, and taken possession of the heart of one of those in the retinue, while remaining undetected, began addressing me with these words. Oh, good sir, seeing that you have come to know this much, while being aware of these facts firsthand, keep this information to yourself, and do not go spreading or teaching it to others, whether to your disciples or those who have similarly gone forth. Do not wish for your disciples or those gone forth to know what you know now, sir. After all, sir, in the past, long before you, there have been others in existence, other recluses and Brahmins who also believed themselves to be arahants. See, believed themselves to be arahants. So he's like sandwiching in there an insult, declaring themselves to others as such, as fully self-awakened Buddhas. They too went and taught what they knew to their disciples and those who had gone forth. However, upon the breakup of their bodies at death, all those recluses and Brahmins claiming to be liberated were reborn into the miserable lower realms. On the other hand, so he's playing the same tactic that he played earlier. So it's just a bunch of lies. So he's trying to deceive. He's still, Mara has despite being the evil one, he also has this inability to understand wisdom. Anything that he never gives up. He's still trying to convince Lord Buddha, or convinces himself that Lord Buddha can be deceived. In that sense, he's quite incorrigible, as they say. On the other hand, there were also other recluses and Brahmins in existence who had lived before your time, who also believed themselves to be arahants, declaring themselves as fully self-awakened Buddhas. But they did not teach nor shared what they knew with their disciples and those who had gone forth. Now, upon the breakup of their bodies at death, all those recluses and Brahmins claiming to be liberated were reborn into the delightful and happy higher realms, in contrast to the others mentioned. Therefore, O Bhikkhu, kindly heed my advice and listen for your own good. Keep this information to yourself and do not go sharing or teaching it to others. So for your own good, just dwell in your peaceful meditative state while living your present life, and do not tell others what you have personally discovered and know to be true, sir. He's watching for, as they say, himself, his own goals, to keep people in delusion. He's serving his own interest, plain and simple. He doesn't care about anybody, because this is him advocating for his cause, to keep people not penetrating through. Now, bhikkhus, when this was said, I addressed Mara, the evil one, directly by saying, I see you, Mara. Do not think to yourself, he doesn't see or know it's me, because I do indeed see and know you, Mara, O evil one. You cannot hide from me. Mara, you have not a single iota of compassion in your heart. Hence, your words are not being expressed from a place of genuine concern for others, or even out of kindness, but the exact opposite. After all, evil one, your concern is that if the reckless Gautama goes on teaching these truths to others, then truly I will lose my reign of deception and terror on others too. Because then others also will slip through your grip and get freed. And another thing, evil one, those recluses and Brahmins you mentioned, who in the past believed themselves to be arahants, declaring themselves to others as fully self-awakened Buddhas, were not in fact arahants at all, let alone fully self-awakened Buddhas, unlike the one you are now addressing, Mara. For I am indeed the Tathagata, the fully self-awakened Buddha. Therefore, that is a lion's roar, by the way. We call that in Dhamma. Therefore, evil one, whether he does or does not teach the Dhamma to his disciples and those who have gone forth, the Tathagata continues to be the Tathagata, remaining untouched and unchanged in his status. Furthermore, evil one, whether he does or does not teach and guide his disciples and those who have gone forth, the Tathagata continues to be the Tathagata, remaining untouched and unchanged in his status. And why is this so? It is because the Tathagata, or evil one, has completely removed the corrupting contaminants, the asavas, from the heart, having utterly left behind those defiling qualities that inevitably keep one trapped in further re-becoming, which in turn brings torment and terrible suffering through rebirth, aging, and the inevitability of repeated deaths. The Tathagata has pulled them all out with their roots, having eradicated them all, as he cut those contaminants down like a palm tree that's split in half, turning it into a dead stump. Thus, the Tathagata has obliterated it from growing any more shoots ever again, and therefore he has completely eliminated the corrupting asavas, the contaminants of the heart. On hearing these words from the Tathagata, Mara became silent and was unable to say another word. And so, bhikkhus, given the interaction that took place with Baka Brahmā, the name of this discussion is to be called Challenging and Instructing the Brahma Gods. Sadhu, sadhu. Yes, we had to kind of go a little bit, I wouldn't say rush, but I wanted to complete the sutta because I didn't want to divide it 2 weeks because it would make us lose some of its power that it has in one flow. An amazing sutta. But any thoughts, comments? It's a very colorful sutta. And there's so many elements.
Bhante, I have a question, if it's okay.
Of course.
You were talking about people's attachment to the different elements, and you touched on, you talked about the people's attachment to the solidity of the earth element, and how that can show up, examples of it. But with the others, like for example, the water element, how can you be? I guess I don't understand how you can, how that can show up, like being, it says in the sutta, depending on the presence of its penetrative fluidity. What does that mean, like to hold on to that?
Great question. I use the term fluidity, even though in other translations they use the term cohesion. But when you use the word or the term for the bhuta or the element of water, you cannot extract or remove the fluid aspect of it. That is the first thing that comes to mind, right? But there's also the cohesiveness of it. When you think of water, the water molecules on the surface, they are very, very cohesive to one another. That's why when you do a belly flop into the pool, it hurts, because depending on how high you went up, or you throw something in the to the surface of the water, it just go bang first and then it goes in. So that's also the interesting that they knew that, I guess, the cohesion part of the water element. But in specifically in reference to your question with the fluidity aspect of water, when you are, Lord Buddha is not saying don't use these. These are not part of your understandings or the growth of your understanding. No, it is when you become top heavy in any one of these. For example, in Asian medicine, a person becomes sick because their doshas are shaken in Ayurveda or in Chinese medicine when one of the elements is being more pronounced. Too much water element, too much cold, too much wind, right? So if you were to use the water element analogy in reference to how you are able to hold yourself in meditation, let's say, or when you are unable to hold on to an object of meditation, right? So if you use that example, a person who is being top heavy with the water element is a person who is unable to hold his ground. So energy is there, but it's always flowing outward horizontally. So you're not able to gain the strength that the solidity would have, a column, right? So you can't build a building, all right, when the cement is still wet, right? You put the metal bars, this and that, and then you pour the cement and the rocks in there, right? But you wait, it's inside of a mold. You wait for it to dry. To do what? To dry, become solid, becomes the earth element. Why? Because it was too much of the water element dominating it. So here I'm trying to use different analogies to capture what I understand to be the relationship with not holding on too tightly to any one of these, okay, as the most definitively solid thing, even in the case of water being, yes, this is true, I'm going to attach myself to it. So when you are very shaky, like you would be on a boat, right? You don't have firm ground. That's what a lot of people do when they're stuck in open water and it's tumultuous and or storms and they come back to land. The first thing they do is they go, ah, they will kiss the ground. It was like, oh, solid ground. Oh, thank you. Too much of one, too little of another. So we're talking about balancing here. So even the way you practice. So a person who has, again, using the example of water, in relation to or in the context of sila, maintaining sila, a person would say, oh, I can be this way here and I can be that way there. I'm very much flowing. Sometimes in our culture, we've unfortunately given it the wrong term. We call it, oh, being organic. That's not organic. It's an insult to carbon and oxygen. Okay, it's not, it's insult. It's not organic. That means you're very flimsy. You're very unreliable. You're very ambivalent, right? You have that today's in the different things that what was it? Ethical or moral fluidity. That's another thing. Fluid. It's interesting, without knowing human beings today in our delusion, we are using terminology that you can trace it back to the Chatu Mahabhuta, the four great elements, being misused or used with ignorance. Is this kind of helping? Do you see any aspects of what I shared with you, like things that you can use, especially in your practice and how you look at yourself? Not just you, but everyone, like people.
In my example, I can see a leaning towards being too solid. Yeah.
People who work in they're called helping professions. I think it's a misnomer. Helping can never be a profession. As a psychotherapist, that was the title, helping professions. Well, there's helping, it's helping. Where did the profession part come in? You can't turn that into a dollar sign or a euro sign or something like that. It's alive. So in the helping professions, you have people who usually they bring in their own bags of emotional issues. Therapists, so, social workers, you name it. And then they encounter a major problem. Why? Because their boundaries are so porous. I call it the Swiss cheese boundary, right? It wasn't my term. Others have used it before. I heard it from some other places. But it's porous, meaning it's fluid, meaning the person doesn't know when to say no. They're too afraid to hold their ground. There's so many reasons. Could be wanting to be agreeable because otherwise you don't see any value for your existence. Yes. You always want to attach to something, someone, to find that you really matter, because the person cannot live on their own. The easiest thing, the easiest litmus test I've given to people in this regard would be, imagine you're in a deserted island, but there's food, there's you're complete safe, but there's enough water, there's enough food. You have nothing to worry about in those sustenance, everything else. Would you want to stay indefinitely? Usually, if they're being honest with me, they would say, no, I want to go back to society. Why? What's wrong? Because that's what you always wanted. You want to go on a vacation for 2-3 weeks to be away from things. Okay, you're away from things. Yeah, but not that much. Why? Because the person doesn't know their value. They cannot live with themselves. Ooh. They always are struggling to gain attention from someone else and to vie for their attention. So they want to influence the world and allow themselves to be influenced constantly, to the point where they don't know how to stand on their own two legs. This is another way of looking at the water element dominating the scene, because it requires cement, it requires mortar and bricks, it requires a lot of no saying compassionately to plug up those holes. And most people are not willing to do that. So you have a lot of what they term in the field of social work and psychotherapy, vicarious trauma, in medical field as well, nurses, this and that, vicarious trauma, because you take on the trauma of others. Well, how did I get it? If I have a solid wall of protection, I can't get it. I can reach over the fence, I can help do this, and then climb up and come into my safe area. That would be an example of using the patavi or earth element wisely, without allowing the earth element to go off whack, as they say. Now, similarly, if I go back to the solid element or earth element, the earthiness of earth, this, by the way, this is just one aspect, one way of understanding. This is not all, okay? This is how I'm explaining in this fashion the four elements and their relationship to one's well-being. Having said that, so the earth element, if a person is too top-heavy, too much dominated by the earth element, the earthiness of earth, as Lord Buddha was saying, it would be somebody who would turn it into an igloo, a closed. It's no longer just the walls that are impenetrable, but there's not even room for him to climb over the walls to go and help the world and come back in, or have a door, even better. So if there's a door, then they also cement that. They lock themselves in. This is what we also mean by miccāditthi, wrong view, when the person says, this is it. This is what Lord Buddha meant, and only that. Let's say. Okay? And usually their views are wrong already, because Dhamma is life. Okay? And the way we understand it, it needs to remove pain. If it is, okay. Long term, yes. And is the person's wisdom rising? Are they getting a more fulfilling life? Are they really growing in their sila, in their bhavana, in their mental cultivation, purity of heart? Is it there? And are they gaining wisdom? And you see that through their behavior, through their choices. So the person is becoming more and more pure. Parisuddhiya, it's called in Pali, purification. So if that is working, the person doesn't have to sit down and just point their finger at your face and say, Lord Buddha only said this. You have to believe this. No, the person doesn't need to do any such thing, any such craziness, because their life has become the Dhamma. They are the living embodiment of the Dhamma. So this is a person where they have left behind their adherence, their subscription, there's membership with the four elements. How's this? Does this help?
It's very helpful. Thank you.
I'm glad. Any other thoughts? I think you're all being compassionate towards me, seeing that I've spoken for some time. Much appreciated, of course. Let us transfer some merits. Akasatha chabumata deva nagamahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu lokasasanam. Akasatha chabumata deva nagamahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanam. Akasatha chabumata deva nagamahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu mam paranti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May you all be well. May you continuously progress. May your faith in the Triple Gem grow, especially through your own personal practice. May you come to see the beauty of the Dhamma through your own efforts, with your own eyes. And may all those merits be spread and shared with all your loved ones and all beings, and human and non-human, especially the Petas, who we always seem to forget about. The Devas don't need much of our help, but they really like, who doesn't like to be acknowledged, right? Even Brahmas, they feel really cozy and nice about it. Oh, these humans over there, they're thinking of us. Oh, that makes them feel good. All right, that's good. Doesn't mean that they're gaining something, but the Petas definitely will gain. In many cases, the gaining would be, in fact, getting bumped up out of that miserable realm. And what a great thing. What a gift to come to them from totally people that they've never met. And they're really, really the only ones in all the 31 realms who are in the position to gain. So if you want to help, just have a thought every time. If you put a glass of water in front of a Lord Buddha statue, or have somebody you do something to someone else, it's such a good thing, and they come and look at you, or they say thank you, instead of just making that the end wall, like the corner, the brick wall that's behind you, no, keep it open. Let other beings also join in the receiving of that smile, receiving of that appreciation. And just say, hey, Petas, whoever you are, wherever you are, however many you are, whether related to me or not, I'm sharing it with you. And that's it. That's all. And same thing when you're actually making donations to individuals you find to be, you want to give. Also, when the intention is being made and you give it, remember the 3 phases of joy, requirements that Lord Buddha talks about in the Sutta Nipata. The joy has to be there before you give. The joy has to be there while you're giving. And especially, the joy has to be there when you have already given and you just thought of it. That makes a dana, by the way, Lord Buddha says. Beautiful. Anyhow, I will let you go. Until next week. Sukhi Hot.